Welcome to the Station Wagon. I'm the older brother, Mark.
And I'm little sister Julie. This is the podcast where my brother and I give up something we take for granted and tell you how it goes.
Buckle up and enjoy the ride. So, hey, Julie, we are talking about gossip today.
Yes, and your coworkers came up with this idea because they're sick of you gossiping, right?
I don't think that's true at all, actually.
Well, I'm excited for this. I'm also excited to talk about gossip just in general. Okay, well, as everyone knows, we're going to talk about the history and science. So when I was doing the science, the way gossip was defined, I'm not reading this, but in my memory, it was speaking about someone else or speaking about someone else who's not present in order to share information.
Speaking about somebody else who's not present in order to share information about that person. Yeah, I mean, that's generally what I have seen as the definitions as I went through the history section of this.
Okay.
Real specifically, dictionary.com says idle talk or rumor, especially about the personal or private affairs of others.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Right. I mean, it's just super simple, and it's that notion of idle talk. Like there serves no purpose behind it.
See, I disagree with the idle. That was going to be the part I was going to say. I don't agree with the idle.
I think that's really cool to disagree with that because, as you'll probably talk about in the research, there's pluses and minuses, pros and cons for gossip, right? And
Absolutely,
gossip itself can serve a purpose, and it's not just idle.
Yes, exactly. Hey, thanks for doing the science section for me.
Well, I wanted to tee it up for you nicely.
Nice.
You're welcome. You can throw in the references later.
Okay.
Hey, Julie, would you like a quiz all about gossip?
Yeah.
3 questions, all multiple choice. First question. You're that is not a multiple choice answer.
No, I was saying it's true that there's 3 questions. I think I should get a bonus point. Okay, sorry,
all right.
Continue.
I shall continue. Who said, "The north wind brings forth rain and a backbiting tongue angry looks"?
Shakespeare.
Was it Shakespeare, King Solomon, or Walt Whitman?
Shakespeare.
It was King Solomon in the Song of Songs.
Wow.
So do you know what backbiting is?
Like when you say something mean about somebody who's not there? Rumors?
Right.
Gossip?
That's essentially it. Right. Spiteful or slanderous words about another person who's not present and can do nothing in their defense.
Okay.
And that's something that we see all the time at work or other places. And often we put the kibosh on it and say, you know what, that person's not here to defend themselves. Let's stop this chatter.
Right.
Right. Okay. Number 2, which of these should you not do at work as a manager to stop negative gossip? Ready? There's 4 choices. You should not address the specific perpetrators, meet your entire team or meet with your entire team, encourage positive gossip. Remember, these are things you should not do. Or should you not encourage negative gossip about the gossiper?
Okay, first of all, that was like triple negatives.
Was it? Shall I try that again? Which of these?
No.
Well, hold on. Do you got it? Do you seriously got it?
I understood.
Okay.
I was able to wrap my mind through your neat kaleidoscope of a quiz.
Right.
I would say none of those. Like all of those seem like rife with difficulties.
You should only not. Let me rephrase this quiz because this is terrible because I'm getting wrapped up in it also. Hold on a second. Okay. How is this, Julie? Okay, take 2. Which of these, hey, Julie, which of these should you do at work as a manager to stop negative gossip? Should you address the specific perpetrators, meet with your entire team about it, encourage positive gossip, or encourage negative gossip about the gossiper?
I suppose meet with the gossipers, but I would pick choice E, or number 5, which is figure out why people are feeling like they don't have enough information and improve the communication throughout your organization.
I think that's pretty good. I think that is definitely what a change management expert would say. The actual correct answer for this question in context is you should not encourage negative gossip about the gossiper.
Okay, got it. Let's move on.
Right? So, Julie, who gossips more, women or men?
The research is mixed on this, but I think it's women.
You think it's women?
And I have good reasons for that too.
Oh, good. I don't know if my reasons are so good. I looked at one poll by the onepoll.com research company, and they found that men on average spend 76 minutes a day chit-chatting and gossiping with their coworkers, and 52 minutes a day for women.
One of the big things I'm going to talk about is that gossip helps give power to people who are unempowered. And in general, in our societies, women tend to have less power. So it tends to be something that's probably more important to women.
Interesting. More important to women. Interesting. Okay, yeah, we'll talk more about that. So, Julie, that was the quiz. You missed number 3, you missed number 2, and you missed number 1. I'm so sorry for your losses. You're welcome. That is the summary of it.
Okay.
Shall we move on to history?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you've heard.
Yeah, what I've heard.
What did you hear about at the water cooler?
Oh, jeez. What kind of gossip did I hear about gossip?
Yeah.
That's so meta of you. Way back in around the 8th century BCE, when writers were writing about Greek goddesses, there was a goddess named Pheme, Pheme, who was actually the goddess of rumor, report, and gossip.
Whoa.
So
that's very specific.
It's so specific. So if you were in good favor with her, you would get notability. But if you pissed her off, she would spread scandalous rumors about you.
No way.
Yeah.
So then if there's rumors about you, can you be like, oh, it's just because that goddess Pheme?
Well, right. I mean, everything relates back to the gods and goddesses. Just ask my 14-year-old.
Fair. Okay.
Okay. In the 17th and 18th century, people of all walks of life, except actually for the nobility class, this is like the nobility class and all walks of life hated the use of gossip among the lower classes so much that they invented something called the scold's bridle. And this was in the 17th and 18th century. And it was essentially a punishment tool, an iron muzzle that would encase a person's head and keep them from talking. And it was used for people who were caught gossiping. The nobility, of course, I couldn't find any reports of nobility actually being forced to wear one of these. It was generally for women of the lower classes, and it was a humiliation instrument. They would be walked on a leash, usually by their husband, through the streets and tormented around while they were walking down the streets.
So do you think this is the kind of thing where if a woman was like, hey, my husband drinks too much and he's been womanizing, then he says, oh, she's just gossiping and slandering. Let's put her in this.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, the word scold in this sense refers to it's an older usage, but it refers to a woman who is extra naggy.
Oh, wow. Whereas probably that was how they were trying to seek help back in those days.
Right, exactly. So that was pretty awful. 1750, there was a rumor that King Louis XV of France was kidnapping children and bathing in their blood to help cure his alleged leprosy.
Well, you got to cure it somehow.
For all of our leper listeners, bathing in children's blood does not help, so knock it off.
Oh, okay.
There was some truth underlying this. There was a recently enacted series of ordinances designed to clear the streets of so-called undesirables, and policemen were paid by the person that they brought in. So there were some policemen who would go above and beyond just to capture any children off the streets and bring them to detention houses.
Just to get their quotas and...
Right, exactly, to get their quota. So yeah, parents were truthfully in the right that children seemed to be disappearing. But it wasn't but the rumor or the gossip about King Louis was false.
But that's an example of where the gossip is protective of the group that doesn't have power. Even though the reason behind it isn't true, the message is watch your kids.
Right, absolutely. In 1916, that was the launch of the very first gossip magazine in the U.S. called Broadway Brevities and Society. And it started out, interestingly, as like an A-list read of the New York theater world and high society, but it culminated in the editor, Stephen Clow, and some of his associates being charged with using the magazine to blackmail people. So basically, like getting blackmail money out of people if they didn't pay, and if they didn't pay, their names and information would show up in the magazine.
Oh, that's fascinating.
In 1930s, the first really big gossip columnist, so not his own magazine, but in as a columnist in another newspaper. So dominating the 30s and 40s was a man named Walter Winchell. And he became the most feared journalist of his era because he was using his social connections to mine information and rumors and publish it in his column.
I think that the gossip about famous people is different. I think that's a whole different animal than gossip about people in your environment.
Well, that's interesting because my last topic is all about gossip on famous people. And since the 1930s, we have fallen in love with sites like TMZ and PerezHilton.com, which basically focus on famous people and allow everybody, all of us proletariat, to look at and feel better about ourselves by looking at the gossip and troubled lives of famous people, right?
Right.
And actually, Perez Hilton was named the Hispanic of the Year in 2008 by Terra.com. So, I mean, very influential stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that is all you need to know about history for gossip. And we'll get you fitted for your Scold's bridle as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it leads us so nicely into the science section. So first of all, if you love reading articles, this is a good topic to do a lit review on because there was a ton out there. It was, what do you call it when there's like a treasure trove of good...
A cornucopia?
A plethora, yeah.
A bucket of?
Okay. A bucket o' gossip. Gossip is very common. There's tons of different estimates of like how much of our personal conversation is gossip. But of course it depends on your definition. And so there's some estimates that are like 90% of personal conversations include some sort of gossip. I think that's ridiculously overblown. But at any rate, it's really common. It happens in every culture. Even children do it. Starting at age 5, we start seeing gossip in children's conversations. And even at that young age, they weigh negative gossip heavier than positive. So in other words, if you tell them something bad about person X and something good about person Y, and then ask later about person X and Y, they'll remember the bad gossip, which makes sense. It's more interesting.
Yeah.
But there's lots of reasons for gossip, and we touched on some of them. First of all, it's just informal information sharing, right? There's not a lot of easy ways to get information about different things and different people in your lives. And sometimes this information is important and you need to know. For example, you might want to know that your cousin is pregnant. Is that gossip? Well, they're not there, but it's good to know that your cousin's pregnant, right? You want to send them a present. I don't know. Would you consider that gossip?
I wouldn't, because there's a purpose behind the communication.
Well, see, I would argue that gossip is purposeful in a lot of ways. That's why I disagreed with the idle part of your conversation earlier. It's not just like...
I take issue with that. I mean, that specific conversation has a purpose. Its gossip has some purpose. Yes, I agree that gossip in general has a purpose, but that particular chunk of gossip was purposeful. There is a lot of gossip out there that may serve the gossipy purpose in general, but its specific chunk has no impact or purpose other than maybe making you feel better.
I disagree with that. I can't think of a single... give me an example of like some gossip that just has no purpose.
Okay, let's see. Person A telling person B that they overheard that person C is getting a divorce.
Right. That has purpose.
It doesn't have purpose for the person who's being told this from the person who knows about it, because you're making an assumption that first person cares or is going to do something about it. If they don't care, or if they're not going to do something about it, then there is no purpose other than just social glue.
Well, no. Okay. So I really like knowing when people in my social network are getting divorced, so I don't say, oh, hey, how's your husband?
Okay. That's fair. So there's assumptions about about circles of caring here.
I guess. Okay.
Right?
Well, let me get back to the science, and then we can come up with more examples. Okay. So informal information sharing, right? Like we don't have a newsletter that goes out saying, "Hey, I got divorced." Right. This is stuff that you learn via gossip. Also, this is a huge reason. It curbs deviant behavior. Okay. So what happens is, in a group, when one person starts acting outside that group norms, people gossip about it, and it does two things. One, the gossip can get back to the person so that they learn, hey, you did that weird thing, don't do it. But also, it's instructive to everyone else who hears the gossip, hey, don't do this thing. So, like, let's say there's a big fountain in the town center and you're supposed to use the ladle to get the water out because in this town, your hands are seen as dirty. And so Mark comes up and Mark uses his regular hands and just gulps on and then sticks his tongue in there. And someone later at church is like, hey, did you see Mark Schechter? He put his tongue in the fountain. Isn't that weird? Ugh, that guy. And then all the kids listening learn, oh, I better not stick my tongue in there. I don't want to be a Mark Schechter.
Right, absolutely.
Another thing is that it gives power to groups. This is what I was saying before, that it can be so valuable, especially for groups that are disempowered or don't have a lot of ways of, subverting the man. So I have a pretty depressing one here for you. And this one actually goes along with the next reason for gossip, which is helping verify and checking information. So, for example, let's say you see something kind of weird or you heard something weird, but you're not sure if it's true or not. You can put it out there as gossip and see if other people are like, oh yeah, totally, I've noticed that too. So, for example, do you remember who Larry Nassar was? He was the coach who abused so many women.
Yeah.
He started to get a nickname among the women. Do you remember this?
No.
It's the crotch doc. So a lot of the women would joke about him and just say, oh yeah, he's the crotch doc, because he had a reputation for paying way too much attention to the women's crotches, which he didn't need to be doing. Now, this really stuck with me from the news reports, because this is a way for these girls who are literally in a position of less power and aren't being listened to, for them to informally share this information and check it with each other. One of them went through a horrible traumatic experience, and since she was in a position of not to be able to really talk about it, she referred to him as a crotch doc to another, and that nickname spread, and it does a couple things. One, it helps her hear from others, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Or, oh, really? No, I didn't experience that. So that she can start getting a better sense of, is this a big problem? But also it protects the group, because it starts to give him a reputation. And the girls and young women were able to learn, okay, this guy is a predator. Now, clearly, this is not sufficient to stop a predator, but this is just a very extreme example of the kind of thing that you see gossip being used in order to protect groups. In workplace settings, it could be, oh, you have to work with so-and-so? Okay, good luck. I heard blah, 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 blah. And then that warns you, okay, you need to have an agenda when you have a meeting with this person. I mean, obviously, not all gossip is life and death, as in the case of Larry Nassar.
Right.
For me personally, this one was a big deal because in my neighborhood, we had a bad incident with a neighbor, and the behavior started to get bad gradually. And at first, it was just, oh, yeah, this person's just a little quirky. But then as it started to get worse and worse, I saw gossip increase as people would say, kind of test the waters, oh, hey, do you feel okay with your kids going over there? And that's a way for moms to be able to, and dads to be able to figure out, okay, is this a dangerous situation or is it just a quirky neighbor? Giving power to the group, helping verify and checking information. Okay, and then the last reason, one of the last two reasons is that, frankly, it's entertaining. And this is one that I couldn't really categorize scientifically, and I didn't find a lot of research on this of why is gossip actually fun? Like, why do we enjoy it and need it? And I think it just kind of goes back to being humans who, this was probably one of the earlier forms of entertainment, was telling stories, and a lot of our stories come from our personal experiences. I know that we tell stories about our day at the dinner table, and I guess a lot of that could be gossip, theoretically, except my kids aren't going to, come across that weird dude I'm working with or something. But it does entertain them when I tell them stories about things that happened in the day. But the other reason is that it can be used to manipulate people. Gossip can be used in a very mean-spirited way to take people down, to be bullies. And I think that's kind of what people first thought goes to when they hear gossip, or when they think about reducing gossip in the workplace. They think of that mean-spirited gossip that's there to take someone down, to isolate someone, to make them feel like they're not part of the in-group. And I would argue, I think gossip isn't just that mean-spirited stuff. I think it's also some of these other types of conversations we talked about. Also, gossip can backfire. This is an interesting finding. When people say negative gossip, they're seen as less warm and they're seen as needing control. So it definitely has that kind of effect. So I don't know. Do you experience that too? Have you heard someone gossip meanly, and did it change your view of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So often the kind of gossip that somebody is spewing out tells you more about that person than it does about the person they are gossiping about.
Absolutely, because you don't know if that gossip is true or not, but you do
Right.
know it's true that they're telling it to you. Like, that's a
Right.
fact.
And that it's important enough that they're actually spending mental resources
Right.
and your time.
In your time, right. That's your commodity. Okay, my last question for you. At IU, Indiana University, did you ever have a sociology class with Dr. Donna Elder?
I certainly did. She was awesome.
Cool. So, yeah, I read one of her articles. She wrote a really neat article about gossip and about this unconscious conversational rule. Basically, it was an article that kind of instructs you on how to shut down gossip in the moment.
Cool.
What she found is that after gossip is shared, the first reaction from the group determines how it's going to be treated. So let's say there's a group kind of sitting around having coffee, and one of them says, Mark Schechter never changes his underwear.
Oh, God.
Nailed
it.
Let's say the very next person is like, yeah, I know, he's totally nasty. Then it becomes truth. Then it's going to be really hard for the group to shut down that piece of gossip. It's now just kind of gospel. Let's reverse the situation. Let's say someone says, Mark Schechter never changes his underwear. And the next person instead is like, nah, no, he changes it at least a couple times a month. Then the rumor dies out. Mark isn't a totally nasty dude who never changes his underwear. You know, he's just someone who does it a couple times a month. Basically, if you want to squash a rumor, you just jump in fast and you're just like, nah, I don't think so, or oh, that's not what I've heard, or
Throwing
I
water
think
on
they're
the
pretty
fire,
cool.
so to speak.
Exactly. And then the conversation dies. It's just like, this unconscious rule. It's very rude somehow in our society to then come back and be like, no, he really does.
Did her article talk about bigger the fire, the more water is required to put it out at the get-go? Like, imagine all of the rumors and gossip that were in our country about Obama not being a U.S. citizen.
American citizen,
Right? I mean, that literally is a rumor, gossip, but it would not get stamped out.
They had so much at stake, right?
Right.
Because there it wasn't just someone heard a funny thing about Mark's stinky butt.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder if there's follow-up studies of just where too much water kind of undoes it, you know?
Well, it makes you into kind of like Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live, where, right, somebody talks about like you've seen those episodes where they talk about something funny that happened and she throws water on the situation by leveling fact on everybody and then gets, she is the person who nobody wants to be around or talk to.
It reminds me of the little mini episode we did about that randomized control trial and when someone tells you about woo-woo science. Okay, so what we're going to do is, take a couple weeks and not gossip?
We are going to not gossip, and we're also going to not engage in it. We're not going to trigger it or start it. We're also not going to be party to it if somebody else brings it up.
But what if they bring it up and I'm just sitting there and I'm like eating a sandwich? Do I have to be like, okay, I'm throwing this sandwich in the trash, I'm walking out of here?
No, you can take the sandwich with you, but you'll need to, in some way, stop the gossip from continuing to happen. Just like we've done with all of our other stuff. We are the most popular people around at our workplaces because of this podcast.
Yeah, I think some of my coworkers would disagree with you, but perhaps at your workplace.
Okay.
Talk to you all in a couple weeks. Be right back.
Exciting. Bye.
Not on the greatest premise, but I think it helps bring people together. The people that are gossiping, it gives you something mostly exciting, timely, to talk about, to laugh about, to make fun of in community. It's kind of crappy, but now I seem like a jerk.
My name is Kent. I'm 26 and I'm a Planned Parenthood supporter and patient. The first time I went to Planned Parenthood, I was pretty nervous. I wasn't even sure they provided services to men. Turns out, they do. They offered STD testing, wellness exams, and information to keep me and my partner healthy. I've been a patient ever since. I love that I get expert care, and I'm supporting an organization that matters to me.
Show your support for Planned Parenthood by scheduling your next checkup at plannedparenthood.org.
Okay, hey, welcome back. Did you gossip at all?
Maybe a little bit. It's really hard to not, because when I'm thinking about gossiping, the definition I think about is the one that has idle talk or rumor. it was easy when it was really obvious that there was rumor as part of the conversation, not fact. I was able to say, that's just speculation. I don't even want to talk about that. It just gets my head in a bad place.
When it was really obvious.
And when it was really obvious. But there were other times when it was more on the rumor side, but there was a direct impact to me or my work.
Right. When you actually feel like, I should discuss this because I need to know how to approach that meeting.
Right. Because maybe this is what they say, reading between the lines or reading the writing on the wall or any of those other cliches about how to pick up the not formal communication or the informal communication.
Reading the tea leaves.
Reading the tea leaves. Reading the informal communications of things that are happening around you is what gossip is for too, right?
Absolutely.
I think I did a really good job not gossiping about other people. I'm not a big gossip in general, but one interesting thing did happen. I had to provide feedback, positive feedback about a person to the management team. And I thought about that as I was doing it, thinking, you know what? This is literally gossip, what I'm doing here.
Because it's informal and you're talking about someone who's not there.
Isn't that a form of gossip? If not, what is it called?
Yeah. Right. No, I completely agree.
Right. I know you do because you don't buy into that idle talk or
the idle part.
The idle part. Yeah. So what's been your experience?
When we went into this, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be one of those nothing episodes where I don't gossip, so nothing's going to happen. But
Right.
Yeah, I do gossip, of course. So there were lots of different examples. Work gossip, just like you said, sometimes it's reading the tea leaves of what's happening on the East Coast while we're on the West Coast. That's totally gossip, but it's part of my job, and so I don't want to call it gossip. I guess I'd call it strategy. I don't know. There's got to be a nice word for it of information sharing and things.
I was talking in the first half, I talked about this notion of circle of caring, where, do you know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, I understand circles.
You understand circles, you understand caring. So the idea is just concentric circles, and I care most about those things that are within the smallest concentric circle where I'm at the center. And then as you go further out and further out, I care much, much less. So also, besides just knowing if something was factual or not, if I could pick up pretty quickly that this was so outside my circle of caring, I would just stop listening to it. But It was much harder when it was closer to my circle of caring. That made it much harder to stem off or to not take part in.
So other gossip that I noticed was family dinner table conversation, because the kids love to hear us talk about just weird things that happened at our work or interpersonal conflicts that we solved.
Okay.
I don't know why this is entertaining to them, but they just think it's interesting to, I guess because most adults just kind of give the impression of adults are great, kids are dumb. And we're like, no, adults make mistakes. Here's something that happened and here's what we did. So they really love those. They want to hear about when someone did something bad or, just made mistakes and how we fixed it. And fortunately, I have plenty of examples of how I made mistakes. With Jason, he's not a big gossiper.
Do you mean Olaf?
Oh, yeah, with Olaf. Thank you. Oh, I'm sure I'll remember to edit that out. Oh, that was a close one. With Olaf, the neighborhood stuff I referred to in the last episode, we talk about that a lot, but that's a safety concern, too. I mean, it literally has become a safety concern. So it's gossip, but it's also safety. So I kind of had some discussion in my own brain of, okay, am I telling him this because I want to keep everyone safe, or am I telling him this because I think it's juicy, right?
Yeah, see,
entertaining.
Right. It's almost like the phrase you're looking for, not strategy, but it's more like an after-school special or like a public information.
Yeah, right?
Bulletin or something like that.
So here was the one example I thought was most interesting. So at one point, some of my friends were talking about someone else who wasn't there. This is the classic example you think of with gossip, right? Of a few people sitting around and one person being like, oh, I do not like him because X, Y, and Z, right? So I had sat down with my friends and they had asked, oh, hey, what are you guys doing for Station Wagon podcast? And I told them. So then when this conversation came up later of, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at him, then they wouldn't continue the conversation. And they're like, oh, we'll talk about it when Julie's not here because she can't hear gossip because of the station wagon. And I was like, no,
right.
I want to hear it. And I was like, oh, man, this sucks because I really wanted to know. And we didn't gossip about it. And I was trying to think about why was this so important to me? Like, was it the entertainment? No, my friends are really interesting. I was hanging out with friends I hadn't seen in months and months who live out of state. So it wasn't that. We were totally entertained. And it took me a while, and I realized, do you remember last time I was talking about the deviant behavior that gossip is useful for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that I wanted to know, what did this guy do that made my other guy friends so mad, so that I would know not to do it. That was kind of like the base reason. Was yeah, probably it would be a little entertaining too, and I just want to know, but I want to know, like, did this person do some sort of weird behavior at the public fountain? And
Right.
so I can learn what it is that I don't do it. Because of course I feel awkward, and I think everyone feels a little like weird and socially sometimes, and I just want to know from my cool friends, what is it? So I think that was really the base for me, why I was so curious, and I'm still curious, and I still want to know.
I know I can't even remember what they are now, but there were a couple pieces of gossip that I wanted to tell Kendra, and I had to tell her, sorry, I can't tell you.
And what was the reason you wanted to tell her? So that she would think you're cool, or?
Well, she already thinks I'm
make sure
cool. I mean, come on.
No.
Right? So
yeah.
the reason I wanted to tell her was because doing anything is more fun when you do it with somebody else.
Oh,
There are people who go to an amusement park or go to movies by themselves. I'm
Right.
not one of them. I like to do those things with other people because I don't know. I like to have witnesses, or I don't know. I enjoy it better when I'm with somebody else to talk it through or to experience it. I don't know how to explain that, but that was what I was feeling about this gossip. It was not impactful to her. It probably
Right.
wasn't impactful to me. It was just like talking about, I think it was probably on the lines of what you've been talking about in terms of deviating from the norm, and just
Right.
how interesting that is to hear about the deviations from the norm and what somebody's either doing, gotten away with, or got in trouble for.
Something we didn't talk about last time is gossip as a commodity. Like, okay, I heard this crazy thing about the people so now I have this commodity I can share, and I want to share it with my wife Kendra because I want her to think I'm cool, and also because I want to share things with her.
Do you mean like commodity in terms of upping your social capital?
Yeah, totally. Like, I have all the knowledge, so I'm valuable.
Gossip is a form, can we just say gossip is a form of knowledge or information? And those
Yeah.
who hold that in our culture
Have
definitely
power.
have power over others, right? Like you were saying before about how people who aren't powerful try to gossip to regain or capture some of that power. It's because of that, I think.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot.
I learned a lot too. So Julie, overall, I would sum this up as being very cool, and you should try to do it and think about it. And like you said earlier, there's lots written about it. There's all kinds of articles about 5 things you can do to stop gossiping at work, or what the impact of gossiping at work is, blah, blah, blah. An article that I found that really spoke to me about the negative form of gossip was that, this is a quote from Jennifer King Lindley and her article, "Gossiping is like eating cake for breakfast, temporarily thrilling, totally delicious, but leaves you feeling kind of icky." That's the negative form of gossip. For everything else that we've been talking about, more power to us, because it's the social glue that keeps us together as a society. It keeps people in line, which is very important to keep stability and social control. And it's super, super fun as long as nobody gets hurt.
Right. I would say if you're a leader in an organization that's having a problem with gossip, if you're hearing this as a complaint from people, then I would take action, but I wouldn't look for the gossipers and penalize them. I would instead think, okay, why are the people feeling that they need to be sharing information in this way? And how can I make communication more transparent? What is the reason behind this? Because gossip happens when people are feeling like they need more power.
Yep. Cool, Julie. This is great. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah. Hey, thanks to Mark's coworkers. You guys should keep coming up with cool ideas. If you have ideas, if you want to connect with us on Facebook, we have a Facebook page for the show, but we also have the Station Wagon Podcast listener discussion group where we always share interesting ideas for the show. So please join us there. And you can, of course, also go to Twitter. We're at WagonPod, or email us at wagonpodcast@gmail.com.
And we don't Snapchat because that's an abomination.
I like Snapchat.
Oh, you do?
bit. Yeah.
But you're not 20-something.
The only contact I have on there is you and Jason.
Oh, my God. I don't use it.
Olaf.
You should delete me.
Okay.
Anything else, Julie, that you wanted to tell
Nope.
people?
Oh, thanks to the Pleasure Kills for the use of the song Modern Problems. Thanks so much to you listeners for sharing our show with your friends. Thanks for giving us iTunes reviews. We're podcasters, so we love those. Yum, yum, delicious. And thanks for our spouses and children for putting up with us.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
That's it.
All right. I will talk to you
Okay.
later, Julie.
Bye, Mark.
Bye. Oh, wait, one second. See you later, Olaf. Thanks for taking care of Pebbles.
He did pretty good, right? He did history really well.
He did a wonderful job. It was really fun to listen to him.
So I was texting you to say that I thought he did a great job, but he wasn't very funny. And I accidentally texted that to him.
Oh, Julie,
did.
what is wrong with you?
I don't know. But he was like, no,
God.
that's okay. I can take feedback.
No, Jesus, I thought he was really funny.
I love that guy.
I think Jason is pretty funny in his woodenness.
Yeah, no, he just has that, like, more like deadpan
Yeah,
style.
totally right. That's what I mean.
It's hard to get deadpan over audio.
No, well, I got it.
Whereas
I thought it
you're
was good.
more like, this is more you. I'm Mark.
That's right.